English law of attraction, between the science of beliefs and the theater of illusion. Imagine for a moment that your life is a vast fertile field, not just any field, but a sacred space, where every thought is a silent seed and every emotion is the water that nourishes it. In this place, the harvest depends not only on what you plant, but on how you care, day after day, for the invisible soil that is your internal state. And yet, how often do we get lost looking at the horizon, waiting for something to bloom, without realizing that the earth beneath our feet is dry? The law of attraction, so often spoken of and so misunderstood, presents itself as a tempting promise, the idea that we can shape our reality with the power of the mind alone. But between the desire and the result, there is an invisible territory, a blind spot where belief and biology meet and dance. Bruce Lipton calls this place the epigenetics of beliefs, the science that shows us that our thoughts are not just stories in our heads, but chemical signals that spread throughout the body, altering how our cells respond to the world. Joe Dispenza adds a layer that is almost poetic, the bridge between intention and the electromagnetic field. He reminds us that thinking is just the beginning. Feeling is what transforms. Coherent emotion, the kind that is born from a true harmony between what we think and what we feel, is what shapes the invisible matter we call reality. It is not enough to ask, one must vibrate. It is not enough to want, one must be aligned. Think of your mind as a silent gardener. The belief is the seed. The emotional state is the soil. A belief planted in fertile earth grows strong, but the same seed, cast upon soil, hardened by disbelief or fear, will hardly flourish. And yet, how many of us spend our lives casting seeds to the wind, hoping for miracles, without ever preparing the ground? Perhaps the law of attraction is not about asking something of the universe like someone sending a letter and waiting for a reply. Perhaps it is more like tuning an instrument so that it plays on the same frequency as the music we want to hear. And if so, the question that remains is simple, yet challenging. What station are you tuned to right now? There is a persistent illusion that sweetly seduces us, the idea that thinking positive is enough to open the doors to the life we desire. It is a comfortable promise, like a soft blanket on a cold night. But beneath this welcoming surface, there is a less romantic and much deeper truth. The body does not obey only what the mind declares. It follows, first and foremost, the silent music of the emotions you truly feel. Imagine you desire prosperity. Your mind constructs images of abundance, but at the same time, in some silent corner of your chest, vibrates a scarcity learned over many years. This conflict creates what we call vibrational dissonance, a kind of internal mismatch in which intention walks one way, while the emotional frequency pulls in the other. It's like trying to navigate the open sea with the rudder turned toward one destination, but with the sails blowing in the opposite direction. Science confirms this paradox. Hormones and neurotransmitters, the messengers of our internal chemistry, respond more to the emotion we live than to the thought we project. The mind can repeat, "I am enough," but if the body is steeped in memories of rejection or fear, the emitted frequency will be that of what is felt, not what is said. Perhaps that is why so many people describe the feeling of trying and not succeeding. It's like a radio trying to tune into a station but not adjusting the dial with precision. The sound comes through distorted, with noise, and the music, however beautiful, cannot reveal itself fully. The fine-tuning, in this case, is not just in the choice of thought, but in the harmony between what we think and what we deeply feel. And here arises the reflection that echoes, how many times in silence have you been vibrating something completely different from what you say you want? And what if the real key is not to create new thoughts, but to transform the internal state that sustains them all? There is a silent, almost invisible mechanism that keeps many people stuck in the same life cycles, even when the mind screams for change. It is biochemical self-sabotage, a pattern in which the body and brain become so accustomed to a certain emotional state that they begin to recreate it without us noticing. It is not ill will, not weakness. It is physiological programming. When feelings like fear, sadness, or frustration are experienced repeatedly, they cease to be just responses to events. They become a baseline state, a chemical backdrop that the body comes to recognize as normal. The brain then adjusts its functioning to maintain this chemistry, and the body, like an echo, seeks external experiences that confirm this state. It is what some call the confirmation cycle, the internal world silently shaping the external world. This dynamic is dangerous because it creates an illusion of movement. The person imagines, dreams, plans, but emotionally feeds on the same sensations they wish to leave behind. The dopamine released by fantasies may be enough to give a momentary feeling of accomplishment, but it does not generate the energy needed for real transformation. It's like taking a sip of water while imagining crossing a desert. It provides relief for a moment, but it does not quench the thirst. Therefore, the body is a powerful messenger. It speaks through subtle sensations, a contraction in the stomach, a tightness in the chest, a weight on the shoulders. When one thinks of something they desire, these sensations reveal more about our real frequency than any mental affirmation. If the body expands, there is alignment. If it shrinks, there is resistance. What remains hidden for many is that true change begins in this silent dialogue between emotion and physiology. It is not enough to change thoughts. One must allow the body to learn a new state of being, one that coherently sustains the life one wants to live. The trap of performative spirituality. There is a type of spirituality that seduces by its form but gets lost in its essence. It is the kind that turns the law of attraction into an aesthetic spectacle. Positive phrases stuck on the mirror, mantras repeated mechanically, candles lit at exact times, all very beautiful, but often disconnected from the emotional state that truly sustains conscious creation. It's like decorating the facade of a house while, inside, the foundations remain fragile. The problem is that the anxious search for quick results turns the practice into constant measurement. Each day without the expected manifestation becomes a silent reminder of failure, and this feeds an energy opposite to what is desired. The heart loses coherence and the mind, even full of rituals, vibrates out of alignment. It's like trying to turn on a lamp with poorly connected wires. The structure is there, but the current that should give it life does not flow. There are subtle signs that the spiritual practice has ceased to be nurturing and has become draining. The frustration that grows with each unsuccessful attempt, the comparison with others' stories, as if life were lagging behind some supposed universal right time. The internal silence that should bring peace, now filled with invisible demands. I recall the story of someone who religiously followed all the rituals of the law of attraction. They meditated every day, visualized with discipline, affirmed with conviction, and yet nothing changed. Until, in a moment of exhaustion, this person simply stopped measuring time, stopped waiting for the result, and began to live each practice as a moment of encounter with themselves, not as a means to achieve something. It was then that the energy changed, and life, silently, began to respond. True practice is not a performance. It is coherence. It is when external action is born from an internal state, nurtured by presence and emotional truth, when the gesture ceases to be a request and becomes a natural expression of what one already is. The true vibrational engineering. There is a subtle yet profound misconception that runs through many interpretations of the law of attraction. The idea that one must multiply requests to the universe to increase the chances of being answered. In reality, the power is not in the quantity of requests, but in the ability to sustain a coherent frequency over time. It's like holding a tuned musical note. It doesn't matter how many times it is played, but whether it remains pure and stable. True vibrational engineering begins with the alignment of belief, emotion, and action. It is not a rigid alignment, like a blueprint to follow, but a state of internal harmony that arises when what one believes, what one feels, and what one does walk in the same direction. This attunement does not require instant magic, but rather practices that consolidate a stable internal field, conscious breaths that calm the body, visualizations that nurture the right emotion. Gratitude felt like a perfume that permeates every gesture. Time is a fundamental element in this equation. Just as the body has its biological rhythm, manifestations have their vibrational rhythm. To force the blossoming is like trying to pluck a green fruit from the tree and expecting it to taste like a ripe one. Every desire has a cycle, and there is an invisible point, the point of vibrational sweetness, where everything aligns and what once seemed distant becomes inevitable. This vibrational patience is not passivity, it is presence. It is the daily choice to remain in the frequency of what one desires, even when the external scenery does not yet reflect that reality. It is like trusting that the seed, invisible under the earth, is working in silence, reorganizing its structure to break the surface. True vibrational engineering is not about conquering something that is lacking, but about sustaining the state of being that naturally attracts what is compatible. When the frequency is coherent, the universe does not need to be convinced. It simply responds. Between myth and truth, what the science of beliefs reveals. In the end, the law of attraction is not a myth to be debunked, nor an absolute truth to be blindly defended. It is a living reflection of the interaction between biology, consciousness, and the energetic field. It is a meeting between the science that studies matter and the wisdom that perceives the invisible. Bruce Lipton reminds us that the way we think and feel shapes not only our psychological experience, but the very chemistry that runs through our cells. Greg Brayton, in turn, expands this horizon by speaking of the unified field, an invisible fabric that connects everything and everyone, sensitive to the quality of human emotion. If the emotion is coherent, the field responds harmoniously, as if a well-tuned chord resonates in all directions. If it is fragmented, the return is equally fragmented, and it is at this point that the silent responsibility reveals itself. Before expecting external fruits, one must look at the emotional seed we are cultivating. It is not about rigidly monitoring every thought, but about perceiving, with kindness, what is the prevailing vibrational tone within us. Life in this sense can be seen as a lake. The surface reflects the surrounding landscape, but the quality of the water is determined by the purity of the source that feeds it. If the spring is clear, the reflection will be limpid. If it is murky, no image can hide the opacity that sustains it. So it is with our reality. It merely mirrors what our inner source is emitting. Perhaps the most transformative question is not, how do I attract what I want, but what is flowing from me into the world at every moment? Because deep down, what we seek outside is just the echo of what already vibrates within. And if this echo is not what we desire, the invitation is not to blame the universe, but to return to the source, clean its waters, and let them run again, clear and free. When this clarity is achieved, manifestation ceases to be an effort and becomes a natural unfolding. Not because something magical happened out there, but because something true was restored in here. And it is in this silent, full space that life begins to respond, not as one granting a favor, but as one who recognizes, in the heart that asks, the same melody that it itself sings.